Okay, hello guys. Welcome back to Mindful University, a Just My Anxiety podcast, episode 2 with a new guest. We have Emily here. Emily, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Awesome, awesome. So pretty much, Emily, to start off, tell us about you.
Awesome. So I'm currently a junior at Grand Canyon University. I'm an entrepreneurship major with a minor in social media, and I play club soccer here. I grew up in Idaho, so I was born there, raised there. Did soccer like my whole life, did track like my last 3 years, and I did robotics actually. I was a robotics captain, so I was a nerd. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's awesome. That's really cool actually, because soccer, that's the world's best game.
I agree.
I
I agree.
I play soccer, so I can tell you so many things about why I like it and how
Yep.
it honestly just brings peace and makes me sane. Just
No,
playing.
literally.
Yeah. Oh, so you said you're a junior at Grand Canyon University,
Yep, down in
and that's
AZ.
in Nevada, right? If my geography
Arizona.
is correct.
Arizona.
Nevada. Arizona. Oh.
Yeah, you were close though. It's like kind of that direction.
Okay, cool, cool. All right, yeah, so let's pretty much just get to it. What is the mental health story that you want to share with us today?
All right. So my story pertains mostly to athletics. I've like every human, I've had my fair share of tribulations throughout my life, when I was young, like all this stuff. But I never really had something where I came up to like a wall as much as I did last year. Um, I would say that's probably when I acknowledged that I was struggling with depression and anxiety. And I had no idea. Like, yeah, people get sad. I was used to being sad, but it wasn't like a constant, just looming over my head all the time thing until last year. So, I mean, I can just get into the narrative really if you want me to.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, so with athletics going,
Mhm.
like you said, what sport was this that, brought this mental health barrier?
Yeah, so like I said, I did soccer my whole life. And then I started track my technically my sophomore year of high school, but that was COVID. So we had like one meet and then the state got shut down. So I don't really count that.
Hmm.
My cat is messing with my green screen. So I did track my sophomore year, got shut down, and then continued to do soccer because we reopened for that. And then I did track my junior year. That year's my first year running. I ran the 400 and the 200, and I went to the state championships for the 400, first time ever competing. Um, and I didn't do like too well, but like I went, so it was good enough for me. So senior year, I was supposed to be like, probably winning state or at least placing high up there. So it was like a ton of anticipation. I did club to train for it all year. And then I got to my senior season and I was doing pretty good, except I had, oh my gosh, Cleo, stop. um, I had started to almost develop an eating disorder, but I just kind of disregarded it. Like I'd be eating maybe a meal and a half a day. And when you're training for a 400, you cannot do that. It's I cannot with this cat. You just can't do that. And I was doing good, and then I'd get to a meet, and like I would have 4 events, and the 400 is like the last thing, the 4x4 and everything. And like, I just had nothing left in me. I was exhausted. So my performance was definitely going down, and it was frustrating because at the same time, I was trying to get recruited for college. And there's a lot of pressure because I was doing it late. Most of the time, people are doing that their junior year. Senior year is pretty late. And soccer, like, I was trying to get recruited for that too. And it was just a lot going on. And in the middle of my senior season, I face planted at the end of a 400. And it's funny to look at. And I actually have that video on my TikTok too of me just face planting at the end of a 400. And I got like a decent amount of views too. Like everyone at my school saw it, obviously. But like the backstory behind that's like I genuinely hadn't eaten in 2 days and nobody knew that. And I had nothing left at the end of the 4x4. I couldn't move my legs anymore and I fell. After that, I got in my head significantly. And also around the same time, we had prom, and I got in trouble at prom. My friend group did, and I got suspended for 3 weeks from track,
Ooh.
which wasn't ideal given that it was like right before districts. I literally got cleared to go back like a day before districts. So it was like my whole senior season kind of just bad. No, it wasn't ideal. First meet back was districts, and everything went wrong at that meet that like could have gone wrong. And the very last thing I did was face plant again. So I face planted at the end of a 400. And oh my gosh, I just was sick of track at that point. But I'd already signed for running track at Central Washington University. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a chance. Like maybe going to school will like change it. Like that whole summer beforehand, I wasn't enjoying it at all. I was miserable every time I went to practice. I was like, maybe going to college will change my attitude about it. So I didn't decommit. It's like, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna try. So I was already kind of going in like a little chip on my shoulder, like I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but I was trying to be open-minded. And then so I mean that's kind of the backstory on how I got into track and like ended up at Central Washington. But you can keep feeding questions if you'd like.
No, I completely can relate to like the whole fact of just high school sports, trying to get into college, especially if you have that passion to play in college. Like myself in high school, it was just soccer for me. I wanted to go play college soccer, be
Yep.
the star. I had these so many ambitions of just going to play, at a school, particularly at a D1 school.
As
Uh,
everyone wants, yeah. But it's a lot
exactly.
harder than you realize.
For real, for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I definitely get, trying to be at your best. With me,
Mhm.
at least I know in high school I would train even during like in between classes. Like I would go to the track and just run laps, just to try to stay in shape, then to have practice after school. And I remember my gym teacher would have his gym class during whenever I had a free period and I would go run on the track. He's like, "Don't you got practice later?" I'm like, "Yeah." Okay, wow,
Yeah.
then you must be in good shape. I'm like,
I
"Yeah."
gotta do something. I gotta stay
Yeah,
up.
honestly. And you kind of just are in that mentality that I gotta do what it takes,
Mhm.
and whether that be making sacrifices, trying to be in shape. And I think as far as like nutrition goes for myself, I was literally cutting out every possible bad like type of food that would
Mhm.
affect my performance.
Yeah.
I was watching calories, and that kind of got in the way of also kind of not getting enough nutrients for myself.
Absolutely. It's
Um,
so hard to eat healthy as an athlete. It's so hard.
Exactly. And like with other people saying, no, you got to eat this, put some like, got to put some fat in your diet. I'm like, ah, I, I, I don't want to listen to you. Like I'm trying to like, it's working for me.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of going like with this in this route.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I definitely get like the whole just trying to get everything right for college like that. You can get recruited and then go on and basically live your dream. So pretty much how did that like process of like from high school going into college, the whole recruiting process, how did that take place?
Yeah. So I was trying to get recruited for either soccer or track. But like I said, it was my senior year. Like our in Idaho, the soccer season, I don't know if it's different for where you're from. We do soccer in the fall. And that's pretty early in the year, but that's also like the only time you can really get like seen by coaches. And I started my recruiting process literally like a week before state. So nobody was seeing me play. And like I had a whole profile on like NCSA and everything. And I got contacted by a bunch of D3, NAIA, like all those. But I was like, I want to go to a big school as everybody else wants to, but I'm not D1. I'll say that. I'm not D1. So that wasn't going to happen. And I was like, all right, I'm getting pretty good at this whole track thing. Let me go to club. Let me do some club track, not focus as much on like club soccer or anything, and see if I can get my time down because that's easy. Like you hit a time and you just show that and they recruit you because like you can do it or you can't. That's pretty much it. So I started doing track and I was cutting down my time pretty good. I think I was at like I usually started the season around like a 64, 63 for the 400. And by the end of indoor season, I was running like a 61 and like a 60 during like the 4x4 split. So a good time. And that was like a recruitable time. So I was able to like contact a bunch more schools. I like Central Washington was one of them, obviously. One of the schools in Denver, bunch of NAIA D3s, obviously, but it was more like D2 schools that were contacting me. It's like, all right, I think I'm gonna have to go with the track route because I don't want to go to a small school in the Midwest. I want to like be able to have more freedom on what I pick. So focused on track and everything. And I went on a visit to Central Washington. That was the only one I went on an in-person visit to. And I really just love the school. Like I was very skeptical at first when I saw it online. But then when I visited, I was like, oh, I could see myself here. Like, this is nice. And I loved the business college. I'm a business major, entrepreneur, all that stuff. And I met with one of the professors there, and him and I just became like best friends. So I was like, oh, like they like me. And I'm still like, I still talk to him, and I'm not even there anymore. But I just clicked at the school, and I was like, all right, this is gonna be my place. And like I said, I committed like a week before districts, just signed, and that. And I was like, all right, going to Washington. So,
How's
and
that feeling? Like how's that like when you like, all right, I'm signing, like it felt like a pro contract, right?
it was. I had a party and everything. It was fun. It was weird because I wasn't, like I said, I was suspended at that time, so I wasn't competing, but I was signing to go to school. And there was like a bunch of rumors going around that I got like this is funny because nothing in the statement was true. A bunch of the other schools were using me as a example on, don't do something stupid at prom. They're like, yeah, this girl lost her full ride scholarship to UW. First of all, that's D1. Like I said, I'm not D1. And I did not have a full ride either. So I was flattered, really. And they're like, yeah, she did coke. The rumors were crazy, but it was funny. So it was like a really weird time because a lot of people were like saying a lot of things. I'm like, nope, we're good. I still have my, my contract. I'm fine. But it was definitely a relief to sign it and be like, okay, I'm set. Even though this year's going awful, I'm there, I'm good, we're going. So it was a relief, really.
Yeah, I mean, I would wish I would have that, like, whole sit down, like, take a picture while you're
Yeah.
signing the commitment.
The
Like that's
balloons.
for real. Like that's exactly
Yeah.
like I wanted. I never got it.
Uh,
But but definitely for you, at least, you were open to options like changing to over from soccer to track.
mhm.
At least for me, I was too stubborn. I wanted soccer, just soccer, soccer.
I
I
wanted it so bad. Yeah,
um,
really.
I mean, sprinting was like my ability in soccer, so I could have like it was in the back of my mind track. But I
Mhm.
was like, I feel if I go to track, I'm just gonna kind of miss soccer so much. I'm the one to go back and just regret not at least trying to go all out for
Yeah.
soccer.
Uh,
No, like that's cool. That's definitely one thing to remember is, signing your commitment, especially in high school. Not many can do it. I'm from
mhm.
Connecticut, so we also do soccer in the fall. And
Yeah.
same thing. Recruiting was so late on. Like I started like trying to get recruited by the time my season was over, my senior year.
Yep. It's
So
so
I was like, I don't got any videos, someone like, recording me or anything like that. Like, do you want me to like film myself training? Like that's all I got.
I can show you tricks. Like, I don't know what you want.
Yeah, but no, definitely that's awesome how you had your options open and you kind of just, saw what would be best for you and how you want to go to other schools, much bigger schools and not a small school.
Yeah.
So, okay, so pretty much that whole, you could say, spring into summer, you got recruited into
Mhm.
Central Washington University. Now, how was the whole process with the preseason before starting in the fall? How did that like summer go for you?
Yeah, so I graduated in May of 2022, and my school, Central Washington, was on quarters, so they didn't start until like September 26th or something like that. So that was the longest summer of my life. And it's your senior summer, everybody's like super excited about going to college. All my friends left early August. And like my brother was still in high school, so he was still going to school. My parents were working. So I was literally at my house alone for like almost 2 months and not wanting to train because I still didn't like track.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, I was so bored. And like that's the only thing I had to do was go run, but it was the one thing I was dreading. So I just like I don't even know what I did. I'm gonna ignore that. I don't know what she just did. Um, what was I saying? I'm sorry.
About like not wanting to train.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't really train until like the last month before I left. And I was at that point, it was the frantic procrastination, like, how do I make up the fact that I can't run a 463 seconds right now? Because that's what they're expecting me to do when I step onto campus. So I went hard the last month because I didn't have a choice. I was like, okay, it's time to work. But I really did nothing over the summer. And then I got ready. When I finally got ready to go and it was September, I was like, all right, I'm getting excited. Like, I finally get to go to college. So it was a little bit less of a burden. And then I left in September, got there, moved in. We didn't start training until about a week and a half after move-in, and we didn't start school until then either. So it was just like a free week pretty much to get settled in and, make some friends and everything. So once I got to Central, I mean, it was still warm there relatively, like it's September warm, but it wasn't freezing yet. And I was just like going to the basketball courts really, because I was like, oh, I don't want to go run on the track. I'm doing that for the next 9 months. Let me go play basketball. I don't play basketball. I'm awful, but it was fun. So I got to meet some people there and did that, had a good first week. I wasn't missing my home at all. I was like, freedom, as I feel like everybody is as a freshman. So I was having a good time. Then I finally got to meet my team. We had like this dinner event or something, and I was really excited. I was like, oh, this might be like a turnaround that I was looking for. So that was kind of the getting into the school year. And then start of season was pretty much beginning of October. Yeah. So
Okay, yeah. So you mean, I guess, for freshmen going into college, some would be kind of intimidated to like kind of
yeah.
go out there and meet new people, obviously new environment, but for you, it looks like, you were kind of just open to that and wanted to meet new people.
Oh, I was having a great, because like first week, everybody's there to meet people. And like it was all the freshmen were on campus first too. It was freshmen and athletes. So you're going outside and like there's people like throwing a football or playing a frisbee. And I'm like, they don't know anybody either. Like everybody's in the same boat. So it was like the social anxiety was gone, honestly, the first week. And then after that, people started going back to the like shyness. But it was a fun time. It was just say hi to everybody, meet random people. And yeah, it was a party. It was fun. Like I wasn't stressing about really anything at that point.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. Like I said, it's everyone's new, so obviously, like it's not weird to like go and say, "Hi, my name is," it's
Yeah,
basically that's what they bring you for, like just freshmen to get to know each other.
exactly. Like I was knocking on my neighbor's door and like, do you have a hammer or a screwdriver? And they're like, yeah. And then they just like come over and yeah, we just hung out. It was
Oh,
fun.
yeah, yeah. And so once you got into your into to meet your teammates from track, like,
Mhm.
did you feel like even much more closer to the school with the
Yeah,
school?
I felt like I was like kind of realizing like the reality of it. Like, oh, I'm actually here to do what like I signed a couple months ago. It's actually setting in. And I like I said, I was excited. Obviously, I was nervous. Like being a freshman and new in that situation, especially coming into an athletic program where they have like high expectations and the seniors are doing like big things, and it's hard for you to separate the fact that there's a difference between you now and you in 4 years. So when you're seeing all of these 4-year, 5-year seniors doing these amazing times, having this insane technique, knowing all the routine, like everything, and you're over here like how do I do that? Like it's overwhelming a little bit, but luckily my team was very welcoming. Like I was friends with a bunch of the seniors and everything, so I wasn't as stressed as I would have been otherwise. So it was pretty comforting, but it was a lot to take in at once for sure.
Hmm. And because it was like not necessarily your, I guess, your first choice of sport,
Mhm.
um, I'm assuming you didn't like feel that pressure initially when you came into the school.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad because like I said, I'd only done it 3 years, so I was like, oh, like I still have like a lot of potential I haven't unlocked yet. If it was soccer and I was just really bad, it's like that's just because I'm like that's where I'm at. Like obviously you can grow, but it was like I was so early in the process of my sport that I was like, oh, there's all this times to unlock and everything, like it's only up from here. I wasn't too stressed about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you guys, well, your season starts, it's not in the fall, is it like in the spring, right?
So we had an indoor season that started in October. So like we started training in October and November, and I think our first meet was in December before winter break. So there's an indoor season and that's like fall, winter, and then outdoor is in the spring. So it's like it's a full year thing. And you're training in the summer, but it's not with the team.
Right. Okay. And
Yeah.
how intense was like the training while you were in school? Like practice and stuff, like
It was hard. It's hard. Like our practices on a regular was every other sport's worst conditioning day. I mean, that's the nature. It's running. Like all you do every day is run on an oval. Maybe you go the other direction, but that's the only difference. Like hill sprints, woo, variation. But yeah, the first month was, getting everybody in that mindset and kind of getting locked in, but we called November Hell Month. And it was literally called Hell Month because for like 30 days straight, like every day is just hard, hard, hard. And we had practice in the morning, sometimes like 7 a.m. Other times we'd have weights, then practice 6 a.m., 7 a.m. And it's cold in Washington in November. It's dark. It's not up until 9. Like it was not fun. It was really difficult. And that was at the point where overall in like my timeline, I was kind of fading down. So it was like about a month and a half in. So it was really poor timing with like my mental health aligning with the training schedule.
Yeah.
It wasn't good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So pretty much like you said that was just the pretty much like the start of your like your mental health like kind of like
Mhm.
decline. Can you like explain like what began to happen? Yeah, I guess like with
Yeah. So once the newness, I guess you could say, and like the excitement of school faded away, you're into the classes, you're in your semester and everything, and track became a regular everyday occurrence. It wasn't new. I just started to feel very like homesick at the same time and very lonely. Um, I didn't necessarily feel at home in my dorm room, and I didn't have any super close friends at that point. Like I was the only person in Idaho really that went to that school. There was one other person. So I didn't know anybody from home. Everybody there kind of, maybe knew some people from Washington or had an acquaintance or that went to a different high school. Like I knew nobody. So when it turned into like facing reality again and needing like somebody to like lean on to, I realized I didn't have anybody. And I was being stubborn and trying to not rely on my parents because for whatever reason, I thought that was a good idea. It's like, oh, I don't want to burden them. I'm in a different state. Like I can do it. I'm grown. And that was my first mistake. Okay. That was stupid. But I didn't want to admit to them that I wasn't doing good. So I kind of just kept it to myself. Like I would go cry in the study room down the hall. I wouldn't even cry in my own room because my roommate was there and I didn't want to bother her. So it was like I was very isolated and I did it to myself, but also at the same time, I didn't have anybody necessarily like reaching out to me because nobody knew me.
right.
So I was like, I'm just here. I just got to put my head down and work. That was what I was functioning off of. And I don't do that. I'm a people person. I need friends, I need connection, and I didn't have any and I didn't know how to act. So then I had met, I mean, like I said, I met some people at like the basketball courts and everything. And I met a guy around like October, like late October. And I literally knew him for like 24 hours, maybe. And he had my number. We were texting and I was like laying in bed. And he was like asking like some basic question, like, how are you doing, whatever. And he could just tell through my response that it was like fake. I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm just tired. He's like, are you sure? And when somebody asked me if like, are you sure you're okay? I snapped it. And I was like, I'm really not like doing good. And like, that was a big step for me to even admit that. Because I mean,
Mhm.
like I was laying in my bed, like fighting back tears over, I don't even remember what I was just lonely. Like I was sad. And so he's like, okay, like I can tell you don't want to be alone right now. And he actually came and picked me up. I just met the guy. And we went for like a drive. We lived in like a valley. So we went through like the hills and we were just driving around and everything. And we just talked the whole time. And like he was just giving me company. And that was like the first kind of connection I really made at that school. And it was a relief because like that night I was like, I was not doing good. And I still like I could not tell you what it was about, but I was, I just felt like I was at rock bottom zero. Like I have nothing going for me. Like all of those thoughts that, you shouldn't be hearing. And I was hearing all of them and just didn't know what to do, who to talk to, anything. So I'm very grateful that, he picked me up that night because I don't know what really would have happened if I just stayed alone any longer. But I ended up dating this guy. So we got together later on and that was kind of who I relied on. He was very good at letting me open up and I'm very grateful for that. So that was October, kind of had like that one person, but I still wasn't like friends with many people. So moving forward through, October into November, like I said, with Hell Month and all that training, I was still dealing with a lot of those like feelings that I had at the beginning of like feeling very lonely and not having connection and everything. And that's when it was like I couldn't necessarily hide it anymore. It was getting worse. And that's when it started coming out in my training, because I was at the beginning of the year, I was at the front of like the pack when we would go run like repeat 200s or something. Like I was up at the front. And then I noticed that I started kind of fading back. And I was like, I'm putting in all my effort. Why am I suddenly not good enough? And it was literally just a mental block. Like I was in my head and then I kept repeating that I was failing. And then it was a snowball effect, you know? So when we hit that hell month, it just exponentially, like I just fell so far behind. And then that impacted, you know, every day I was waking up now dreading going to practice. And that's from 6 a.m. You're already not happy about waking up for the day. It's cold outside. It's dark. It's probably raining or windy. And it was just all of these variables adding on to it. And I was just so stressed. And still the same thing. Like I didn't have like a place where I felt like at home necessarily. So I was spending a lot of time at my boyfriend's house, but even then it wasn't my place. So it was like I felt like I was between divorced parents almost, where I was just bouncing back and forth but didn't have my space. And just all of that, I was just stressed. And that was when it kind of switched and I realized like, okay, I actually didn't change. Like I'm still where I was a couple months ago when I was like, oh, I don't like track. And I was back in that spot, arguably worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much it's not unusual to feel like that loneliness, especially when you're away from home. You know, sometimes like you know, during your, I guess when you start college, it will hit you where you're like, wow, I'm here and I'm away from home and I just don't feel like myself. I myself was the same way when I went over to college. I certainly, when I played soccer, I played D3, and I began to not only just train and be with the team, but also kind of be away from friends and family. So I was
Mhm.
pretty much with the team all week. And that also took a toll on myself and kind of just made me not only affect my performance, but not necessarily like soccer as much as I really, used to,
Mhm.
and certainly, with when it comes to having these mental blocks, it is best to seek support, even though I would understand like you sometimes wouldn't want to share that with someone else, that, oh, hey, I'm going through some mental health barrier, because most likely they would not know what to do if they don't know anything about it. And not many people know much about mental health, but everything ever since COVID, it's been something that everyone's been trying to learn more about. But yeah, as far as like the mental health, like those like negative thoughts, at
Mhm.
least for me, it would always turn out to be a thought of something's like wrong, as like physically wrong with me. Like there's like some sort of like health concern, because my body would feel kind of weird. Like it would just feel like I'm sick or I'm getting ill. And then
Mhm.
next, no, I'm just going into like this panic mode. It's like, why am I feeling this way? Something must be wrong. Like I'm assuming I'm healthy. I don't know why I'm experiencing
Yes.
such anxiety. If I'm doing what I like doing, which is supposed to be soccer. Is that
Yeah.
something that you kind of got as well?
Oh, absolutely. So this is it's kind of hard to explain, and not a lot of people actually know this, but it's about time. So for almost 5 years now, I've had this, you could say, like physical anxiety response. Like, a lot of people have panic attacks, and that's not something I'm foreign to. I've had my fair share, and I'm sure a lot of other people are in the same boat on that. But for almost like 5 years now, it's manifested, and like I've gone to therapists, I've gone to doctors, like trying to like solve it, but almost into like a physical response of like Tourette's. But it's not like the verbal kind. It's like my body would start like shaking or like twitching. It almost looked like, first time it happened to me, it looked like I was having a seizure, which was terrifying because I had no idea what was happening. At first I was like, oh, this is like, you can make your like hand twitch. You're like, I can do this. I was like, maybe I'm just doing it subconsciously and didn't realize it. But then when I told myself to stop, it didn't stop. And I was like, oh, this is actually a concern. So that started back in high school, and like nobody knew about it. It only happened like a couple times. Like it would happen a lot if I was like one on one, like in a room with like a guy or something, or if I was like in bed, relaxed. But it was just like kind of random, like really weird. And I didn't tell my parents about it either because I was like, I don't want them to freak out. Like I'm sure it's just in my head. I'm just making it up. Like I'm just being weird. So I didn't deal with it. I had gone to a couple therapists to see if I could like, get diagnosed with anxiety and maybe they could give me some medication that helped with that. So I was on medication for a while and it never stopped it, which was really frustrating because I was like, what's going on? Why is this happening? So it got to the point where I accepted it, and like it still happens to this day, but it's like I can tell when it's going to happen, and I just got to acknowledge like I'm not weird for that. Like
Mhm.
it's not unheard of. I hadn't heard of it, but it's not unheard of.
Mhm.
Um, so that definitely escalated around the same time as I was saying in November. I would be having these like panic attacks that manifested in like just like shaking uncontrollably. Like I would not be sleeping because I couldn't like stop. Like my neck would be shaking. Like I'd basically be doing like 1,000 crunches a night because I'm like shaking. I don't know. It was really odd, but I didn't know how to explain that like to my coach, and I didn't feel necessarily comfortable doing so. It wasn't necessarily something I could explain to my trainers or anything like that either. So I was constantly calling out sick, and none of my teammates knew. And then I was in my head about, you can't even go to practice. Like, how pathetic. Like, it was just a constant, like, this is embarrassing. You can't even get out of bed because you're having a panic attack over who knows what, like, literally nothing.
Mhm.
And it was just constant beating down, like, on myself because of that. And scared of being judged that I'm not at practice because, oh, Emily's sick again. She must just be bailing. Like, all that stuff, but nobody had a clue what was going on. And it isolated me more. And like, yeah, it was me not saying anything, but it was also, I didn't necessarily have people asking.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My friends also were, I mean, they never, I don't think they've ever had any sort of like mental health kind of obstacle, at least not what I don't know of. So I necessarily wouldn't go to them if I were to experience like some sort of anxiety. So I do understand like, some people that wouldn't understand if you were to explain, hey, I'm shaking, what's going on? They would
Yeah.
probably
I didn't
be
want them to think
just
I'm
as,
crazy.
yeah, they'd be just as surprised as you. Um, I think, at least from what I know, those are kind of called tremors, where you would be shaking. And I had my fair share of tremors. I know how that experience is, where I'm just shaking controllably. And sometimes like if I'm walking, I'm still shaking. I can't kind of necessarily walk as
Mhm.
I want to. And I kind of feel like half like paralyzed. I feel like, what's next? I'm gonna like just drop to the floor.
Yeah, like it's
So
like I don't want to be in public while this is happening.
yeah. So I totally get how scary that is because it's scary. Like I get it.
Firing.
But from myself, like the what I kind of accepted to kind of like help me is just remind myself that I've experienced it before. And obviously, I've gone to the doctor, get myself checked out, and everything's clear. So clearly, there is some mental block there that's causing that. And I know whenever you get those in the moment, you don't want to like kind of you can't really accept that it's anxiety. You kind of just try to say, oh my God, it's something else. It has to be something else. But it is anxiety, and it's just really all about accepting it and kind of riding out that wave. And
Yeah, and
it's
it evolved to that, but it took a long time for me to, I
yeah.
mean, like I said, 5 years, and even last year is probably when I started accepting that this was like part of me,
Mhm.
and it's not necessarily something I need to be ashamed of.
Oh,
But even then, like I still never, nobody on my team knows this. No, like my coach, I tried explaining it like one time and it just didn't land. Like it, nobody understood. Nobody understood except for, I mean, obviously, like my boyfriend, he was the one witnessing this stuff. He was the closest one to me. He was like seeing what I was going through, but that's probably the only person that understood what was happening, like in the background.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And with anxiety, it's everyone has it really. You can just admit that everyone has anxiety, obviously to certain degrees. Some
Mhm.
experience it much more, but it's an emotion, and you get it. Everyone has it, so it's something that you necessarily shouldn't even be ashamed about because it doesn't define who you are.
Mhm.
And with proper practice and just proper knowledge, you can obviously lower that intense of the anxiety to almost nothing.
Yeah.
And one thing like I always tell people is that, you can never say, I'm never going to get anxious ever in my life again. That's impossible.
No.
That is impossible. That's like saying like I'm never going to get sick ever again, starting now till I die.
Wish. I wish.
Like it's not going to happen. So I think
Yeah.
once you accept that, the fact that anxiety is just a part of everyone, you
Mhm.
begin to kind of just not fear it anymore. And that's what it wants you to do. It wants you to fear it. And once you just kind of tell it that, I don't fear you, you can do whatever you want. I just know nothing's going to happen. It will begin to stop.
Yeah.
And I know down the line, once you start feeling much, much better, with the proper practice, it can hit you again because it's trying to kind of test you in a way. And instead of saying, "Oh man, like whatever I learned so far, like has just gone down to the drain," no, it's just anxiety testing you. And you're right. All right, if you want to test me, go ahead and test me. I will pass this test. Go ahead. And it feels great once you get over that barrier of anxiety and just the symptoms, sensations that you kind of just wait on out.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, so going into track, where is that like where's the I guess the challenge after that? Was there a much more like higher barrier for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I had a breaking point. I absolutely did. And that was the TikTok that you reached out on me on, the one I posted. That was probably about a week before I quit. Um, so, we were getting through November, December, we had our meet, and I've always had a level of anxiety from track. And it was just out of control. Like, I know a lot of people talk about like they get super nervous before races. And like I never felt like that with soccer. I would be skipping out onto the field and I had no fear in the world. But when it came to running a 400, like it was, I'm about to throw up. Like I think I might pass out from just how much I'm scared. Like I dreaded it because I knew it was going to hurt. And I hate sports that aren't a team sport. I am not an independent motivation person. I am a let's work with 10 other people person. So when you have to run a 400 and it's literally just you, I'm just like, damn, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And it's scary. And that first meet really just opened my eyes to like, oh, wow. Like when you get to the collegiate level of competing, it's a whole nother, expectations on you, not just club anymore. You're not in high school. Like you go from being like, best in your state, best in your school. And now you're at dead last out of 80 people. And like our first meet was against D1 schools.
Okay.
So it was a humbling experience to say the least. And after that I was like in my head about this is where you are in the rankings, like do you even deserve to be here? And it just kept going and going, and practice was hard and I was putting out my absolute everything, and I was still just like I felt like a weight inside of me, and I was almost starting to like disassociate from my entire life just to not have to feel all the feelings that were like subconsciously happening. And the more I did that, the more I started having these panic attacks at night, because I was like, it's the first time I settled down throughout the day and everything just came back and hit me. And then I wouldn't be sleeping. And because I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't performing well in the morning, and I wasn't eating because I was so busy. It was just everything combined. And like, I could not take it anymore. Like, at that point, I hadn't necessarily attempted to do anything, but the thought was a constant daily, it'd be easier if I wasn't here. And that is not a feeling I ever want to encounter again. And I can't say that that was the first time that that ever happened to me either, but this was the most severe it's ever been. And like I said, nobody knew. Like the only person that ever heard me say that or witnessed that was my partner at the time. And it was also like, I felt so horrible putting all of that burden on him because he had his own stuff going on. He was another athlete. He was busy. And he did all he could to help me too. But it was like, I felt alone as much as, he was helping me. It was me that needed to fix it. And I just had no energy left. And the video I recorded that went on TikTok, and I did not expect people to really ever see that, or like, I didn't send it to anybody when I filmed it, but I was at practice and we were running maybe like 100s. It was an easy practice, a very doable practice. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I had like this horrible nightmare the night before, something about my family and all this stuff. And I woke up And I literally felt like it had happened in real life. And I felt like I was like grieving. And it was such an odd feeling because like you can discern when a dream is real or not. But like I was carrying that weight the entire day. And whatever it was, like, don't remember the nightmare, but I was just so like beat down low, like I had no mental energy left. That when I got to practice, just having to push any bit like harder with physical exertion just brought me to tears. And I was bawling while sprinting the 100.
Mhm.
And I like started hyperventilating when I finished. And my coach just, she pulled me aside and she's like, "Do you need to leave?" And I was like, "No, I can do one more." And she's like, "Are you sure?" Like, "Yeah." And I ran one more and I could not stop crying for the life of me. Like all I wanted to do was just run 100 meters and I couldn't. Like my brain was just, it was winning. And at that point I crossed the line and I'm sobbing in the middle of practice and I was embarrassed. And she's like, "Just like, it's okay. You can leave, like be done for the day." And that's when I went and I got in my car and I filmed that video because I didn't know how to explain to my coach what was happening. And I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to and I felt crazy. And I was like, okay, like I needed to get it off my chest, what was happening internally. And so I put my phone up and I filmed that video. Um, Nobody ever saw that video. It resided in my Snapchat memories only. And then I just sat in my car and I think I cried for probably an hour. And then I went home and I went to bed. That was it. Next day, I was just back to being numb because that was my snapping point. And then it was back to pretend like everything's okay and just get through the next day until you can go to bed and wake up again. And that was a couple, maybe like 2 weeks or a week before winter break. And I was like, just make it to winter break. You can go home, you can reset and everything, and you'll be fine. I get home and I'm like doing better on with my family, but I did not run once. I didn't want to touch a track. I didn't want to lift weights. I just wanted to ignore what I had to go back to. Um, and then it was like maybe a week before we had to go back, and I was like, I'm screwed. I haven't done anything in 3 weeks. And when we get back, we're entering like competition season. There's meet after meet after meet. And I just like had a little breakdown again and I was crying and I was like, I don't know if I can bring myself to go back into this situation. I don't know if I'm going to hurt myself. Like I'm at such a low point. I don't think I can do it. And my coach, like I said, she was really unaware of what was going on. She had a lot of athletes on her, like on her plate. We only had one coach at the time. So I didn't have much of a relationship or connection, which definitely was not helpful, but I'm not blaming her by any means. It was the situation we were in and it is what it is. But I called her. I was like crying on the phone. Like, I don't think I can do it. And this is the first time I'd really opened up to her about it. It's like, as I started talking, it just came out like, I don't think I can compete. Like, I think I need to quit. And as an athlete, that is the number one feared thing to ever say.
Mhm.
Because you're not just giving up your sport, you're giving up your clout, your reputation, everything that you were known for. Like I went to this school because of track and now I'm just giving up, and you don't want to be labeled the quitter, the person that couldn't do it. And so there was all of this stuff in the back of my head where I was like, I don't want to do it, but at this point I had no choice. So I told her, I was like, I will try to finish what I started and I'll do indoor season, but I don't think I can do outdoor because that's another 5 months and that's just too much. I can't do it. I will finish indoor and then I'm done. And then I told her, I was like, will you be okay if I reach out to the soccer coach and ask if I can try out? Because that's something that if I'm quitting track, I want to at least give it a shot. And she's like, absolutely. I know how much you love soccer. Like, and we were very open about that conversation and it was fine. And I felt a little bit of a weight come off my shoulders at this point because I knew it was going to be over. I got back and after that, it was a little bit better, but it was still like I re-entered misery state. I could only stay away from it for so long. There was a ton of stuff just going on in the background outside of track that I couldn't tell anybody about and didn't talk about. And then track on top of it, just being back in it, it was consuming me. And I just continued to go down that, slope of depression and constant panic attacks and everything. And I had like 3 meets that I went to, didn't do very well, but every time I showed up, it was just get through the meet and then you only have one more. Get through this meet and then you're done. It was just into the next. I finished track was fully done right before the indoor championships. I was like qualified to go, but I had a work trip, so I just missed it. And I wasn't too sad about it either, really. I was like, okay, I guess I'm done. And when I got back, nobody on the team really knew I quit. And it was kind of surreal because I just didn't have to go to practice that Monday. And that was that. I didn't have an exit meeting. I didn't even give back my like jacket. I give back my uniform at the meet and like, you're done. You're off the team. Okay, bye. Like, oh, and nobody knew where I went, and they just knew Emily wasn't there anymore. Some people didn't know until July that I wasn't on the team anymore. And this was like maybe March. So that was a definite freeing experience because I slept in that Monday until like 11 p.m. and I was ecstatic about it. But then I was like, my identity's gone. Like my identity was in sports, and now I'm just here in this school that I was only going to for sports. So that's when I started training for soccer, and I had that to look forward to. And she offered me a 2-week like tryout period with the team. And that's when things picked back up, honestly, for me, was the 2 weeks that I was at tryouts. Happiest I'd been the entire year there. I love soccer. I know you get like that feeling of, enthusiasm every time you get to go. Like I had 6 a.m., 7 a.m. soccer practice, and I was excited about it. Yeah. So I was real happy when I was going through that. And then I thought things were going well. And last day of my tryout, she asked me, like, how do you think you did? I was like, like for not playing really in 2 years at this point, like in a game, I feel good. Like my growth from day one till this day, like it was very obvious. Like I felt good about it. I was connecting with the girls on the team, and the coach seemed pretty positive about me. She's like, yeah, no, that's great. And then next thing she said, I don't think you're a fit for this team. And that was the last thing I was expecting to hear at this point. And you can imagine my heart just drops. Like, what do you mean? Like this was my last shot. Like this is what I was supposed to be doing. And she explained, like the roster situation, they had all these recruits coming on, it wasn't the right time. And I totally get it. Like I really do. Like they had a full team and everything. And she offered that I could come back in the fall, or no, the winter of like the next school year, and be on the team the entire winter quarter. And then we can reevaluate before spring season starts. But that was going to be like 9 months of training solo. And after I thought about it for a day, I was like, I can't do that. I can't stay in this town alone pretty much, like, and do nothing. So at that point, I started looking at every other option I could come up with. Like if it was a JUCO, D3, I wanted to play soccer. I knew that. And I was like, I need to look at something else because I can't just stay in this town. It's a really small town, and I'm a city person. It's rural. I'm a city person. Like, yeah, I don't think I can do it. So I started looking at everything, and there's just like 30,000 different pieces trying to like formulate something. But at the same time, I'm planning, we were looking at getting a house for the next 3 years that I was at school. So I was looking at rental properties and all this stuff, and I had no idea which direction I was going. If I was going to stay, if I was going to leave, if I was done with school, like no idea. And I dropped back off on my mental health roller coaster. I was really good that 2 weeks I had soccer and optimistic, and then I got dropped, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Went back into, the waves of depression and anxiety and all that stuff, just right back where I was in November. And at that point, I was like, if I stay here, if I stay in this town and in this environment that I'm in, I don't know that there will be an Emily to be at the school next year. I don't know that I will be able to make it that long. And that was just like a hard thing to accept. But I was like, I cannot be here. And I didn't want to leave. I loved all the people there. I really did. I was in a relationship. I had all these friends. I loved my professors. Like I was doing a lot of stuff at the business college, and they were building programs around me over there. Like I was thriving theoretically on paper, but I wasn't happy like intrinsically. And none of that was going to make up for how low I felt. Went with my parents to Oregon to watch my brother pole vault. He was at a meet there. And when I was talking to them, they're like, how are you doing? And I really sat there and thought about it. And I was like, I'm not happy. And I'd never admitted that to them. And I admitted it at like a diner in Oregon, some random brunch. And they're like, what do you mean? And I just went on and listed everything that was going on in my life and how I like felt just heavy all the time. And every time I woke up, I was just sad. And they're like, are you sure this is where you want to be? And I was like, I don't think it is anymore. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm leaving. Like, I'm for sure going to leave this time. And I still hadn't told anybody back home. Nobody knew I was planning on leaving. They just knew I wasn't on track anymore. And I got back and I started researching other schools, and I'd prayed about it. I've always been a Christian and everything, but that year I definitely stepped away from my faith, and I have no doubt that that had a negative impact on my life as well. And at this point, I was like, I am desperate and I don't know where to go. And I prayed and I was like, give me a sign, give me a direction, something. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my life. And not even like 5 minutes later, my mom sends me a text, and it's the pile of all of my acceptance letters for college. There's like, because we were going to make a bonfire with them, whatever. And she's like, oh, look what I just found in my closet. It's all the acceptance letters. And at the very top was GCU. And I was planning on I was going to go here if I didn't do sports, but I was like kind of hesitant to it. And like in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, I could go to GCU. But I was like, oh, I don't want to do that because it was a Christian school and I knew I was going to be convicted and have to face the fact that I was ignoring God. That was why I didn't want to go. And then she sent me that after I just prayed about it. It's like, I think that's a very clear, like written sign. And then not 5 days later, I put my deposit down for this fall, and I was still enrolled at CWU and everything. And I officially put in my name in the transfer, and nobody had a clue. I didn't tell anybody, except for my partner. I obviously had to tell him because he saw me making a budget sheet for the school. So at that point, I felt like hope come back. And it was another really scary thing for me to officially, like, it felt like I was quitting again. I wasn't just quitting my sport. Now I'm quitting the entire school. I was quitting what everybody knew I was at. Like, everyone at my high school knew I was going to this school and everything. And now I'm bailing. But I can say without a doubt that is the best decision I've ever made in my life. Like, it is a world of a difference, and the environment just is completely different here. And it's exactly what I needed. And I was so scared to do it, and I regret nothing. Like, it was God's doing, and I am so grateful I left.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like I said, it's completely normal for someone to go to college and then not obviously get the experience that they initially thought they would.
Yeah.
And just transferring is sometimes, like you said, like a breath of fresh air, and it's
Mhm.
probably for the best, and it definitely leads to a much better outcome for yourself, for your mental health, and it's just an all around better decision.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's great that you were able to kind of lead that way into finding Grand Canyon University,
Mhm.
and pretty much like I said, starting from a new start, new
Yeah.
school, new environment. And did you like
Sunshine?
yeah
I miss the sun.
did you like go plan on playing soccer there, or was that like something that you did after?
Yeah, so I was, like I said, I was looking at, sorry, I'm plugging my laptop in.
Okay.
I was looking at options so I could play soccer. I knew I wanted to do that. I missed it like so much, but I couldn't really find a situation that I felt fit everything I was looking for. I really wanted a good business school. Couldn't find that at a ton of like the JUCOs that I was looking at. And I was like, maybe I just got to give up on soccer. And then when I was looking at GCU, I found out that they have like a really good club program that's like a legitimate, like funded thing, and a lot of people do it, and it's not like a joke. It's not rec. And I was like, okay, maybe I should look at that. So I called the coach of the club team and met with her and talked about it, and realized it's like, oh my gosh, like this is exactly what I'm looking for. We have practice 3 days a week. We have our own weight room. We have training facilities. We have uniforms, games, all the stuff, but without the insane amount of stress that I was under when I was doing it at the NCAA level. And yes, it is like, it was definitely a pill to swallow to admit, and like my ego go down. I was like, yeah, like I used to be an NCAA athlete. Now I just do club, but like you're playing soccer. It doesn't matter. Like that's what I'm here for. And once I got past the fact the title doesn't matter, I was like, oh, I can do everything I wanted, be in the town that I like, have the sunshine that I needed, have a city, be at a school that has a good business program and play soccer. What am I doing? Like I'd be paying the same amount to be at Central Washington that I was here. It's like, that's a no-brainer. Obviously, I'm gonna go. And so yeah, I am on the team right now. I love it. We have like 100 girls on the team. Well, there's multiple teams, but I got to play. We got to go to Tucson, go up to U of A and everything like that, and get to play soccer again at a competitive level. And I don't have to be up at 6 in the morning, 5 days a week. So yeah,
That is
lucked
great.
out.
That's
Lucked out.
exactly that's exactly how it felt myself, because I also quit my NCAA
Mhm.
athletic status from soccer because I was commuting to school, and it was like a 40 minute commute where I would have practice at night. So classes during the day, get up at 6 for my house, go to school for an 8 o'clock math class, which is I would not schedule 8 o'clock math. Anyway,
No.
have classes till 3, and then pretty much stick around campus until 8 o'clock for practice, and then finish off at 10, come back home like around 12, 1, and then just have like dinner for half an hour, have like 4 hours of sleep and do it all over again. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
something that like it was a mental barrier. And I did also feel that whole are you like giving up on your sport? Like, are you just giving up?
Yeah.
And at first it was tough, but once, like you said, once all of that was over, like not the schedule, the hectic schedule that you had before, once all that was gone, it was that fresh, like that whole like new experience. You kind of have much more time to kind of schedule what you can do, day by day.
Yeah,
And
you have your life back pretty much. Like
exactly.
you can have a choice in what you're doing and everything, and it's a breath of fresh air for sure.
Right, right. And like just the love of soccer came back for me. And I was just playing
Mhm.
pickup soccer with friends, and pretty much just enjoying playing soccer.
Yeah,
Um,
as you should be doing.
exactly, exactly. And at the end of the day, it's exercise, and it's what kind of keeps you healthy, and that's what you need. It's not necessarily going through all of that, hectic schedule, and just not be happy about it. But that's awesome how you went over to a new school. Obviously, playing back to playing soccer, playing the sport that you initially love, and just playing these competitive games still, and still having a life, like you said, being with
Yeah.
friends, going out. And yeah, that's pretty much what life should be about. Soccer, friends, family, school. That's how it is.
Does it make you happy?
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Yep, 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 yep. So yeah, I mean, so pretty much, for any incoming freshman who has committed to a college, but obviously does, have some sort of mental health obstacle. It could be, either just trying to perform well in their college. What advice would you give them, for someone who's just like kind of like thinking like, will there be support for me? Or if there isn't, how could what types of coping mechanisms, what could I do to help with that mental health barrier as I, plan to go to college?
Yeah. And so first thing that I want to talk about on that is so the TikTok that you saw, like I said, I posted that probably over the summer just because it was sitting in my camera roll and it was just I don't know what it was. I was like, I feel like I should share this because nobody knew what was going on. And I feel like this is something people might want to see. I was thinking my friends would see it, right? I wasn't expecting it to get 50,000 views on TikTok. And I wasn't expecting to get hundreds of comments on it either. And I think I got like one hate comment and it was like, how embarrassing, you filmed yourself crying. Whatever. Boo-hoo. I did. But the other like 300 something were literally all athletes. And I mean, there's this relatively famous now pole vaulter at Nebraska, another one at University of Oregon, and they were commenting on it and they messaged me and everything, and we were talking about this stuff, and they're like, I don't see a lot of people like admitting this, and like I felt this way and nobody knew. And all these comments, and like I had people DMing me and asking me like, like, oh my gosh, this is normal. Like people can experience this and not be crazy. Like, what did you do? And so that's something that I've been really happy, honestly, to see people admitting it and asking, how did you get through it? And some of my friends from high school and everything, same thing. The first thing I will say is be completely honest with yourself on how you feel about your sport, and don't be frustrated if it's not what you want to hear. So, like, I was in denial for a long time that I didn't like track. And I was like, oh, I'll just get past it. But then I was like, when I really thought about it, why am I doing it? Like, if I'm doing it for the title, that's not giving me enough. Like, that's not filling my soul. Um, if I'm doing it so that people back home can see that I signed a letter to commit to somewhere, so I'm cool now, that's not enough, because you leave that school, now you're the one doing the work behind the scenes, and they don't care. It really doesn't matter. And acknowledging that and really thinking about why, like what's your why behind doing your sport, will change your level of commitment and mental energy that you're putting into it. So yeah, first thing is just make sure you acknowledge why you're doing it and let there be a real reason why, not a superficial reason. If you want to do the sport and you pass the why test and you're like, okay, I do want to do this and I want to fight for my sport and I want to move forward with it. Okay. Acknowledge what you might be sacrificing when you do it. And for me, I was sacrificing my literal sanity. Like I was sacrificing my mental health, and it was, nearing where I was almost sacrificing my life for this, for to stay. And I had a friend, text me, and she's like, when did you know when it was time to quit? And I was like, that was when I, weighed, what is my handoff for being here? And my handoff was my mental health. And you got to, have a serious conversation with yourself. Where are you going to draw the line? That should be where you draw the line. If it's damaging your mental health to the extent where you might not be safe, you're not doing well, consider if it's really something you need to be in anymore. If it's not to that level, and there's things that you can still do to get through stuff, there's going to be challenges in sports. You might get injured, you might not be hitting the PRs you thought you were going to hit and everything. That doesn't mean that you need to quit. But so like if you're going to stay, and this is the conversation I had with my friend, it's like, you can stay as long as you make sure you put some safeguards up and set yourself up for success. I didn't have, connections, and I didn't necessarily have resources within the athletics department to have support and talk about what was really going on. And that did not help because I had nobody checking in on me, and I felt judged. Like I wasn't going to practices and stuff. And it's like, oh, Emily's just not here again. Emily's not at weights. And that also was eating up at me. Like, you need somebody that's on your side, whether that's a trainer. Some schools have like sports psychologists. My school did not. And I wish they had, because that would change a lot. And I would necessarily, like, having a therapist is good, but you need somebody within athletics, within that realm, that understands, what's going on and how that's impacting you. And so like finding a coach, absolutely. Your coach needs to know what's going on to an extent. And if you don't trust your coach, an assistant coach or a trainer, and, your captain of your team, stuff like that. Like, you need people in your circle that can understand and make sure you're not being judged, and you're going to be okay when you're fighting through that stuff that you're facing.
Okay, yeah, no, they're definitely, those are good tips. And just the fact that there's always some sort of club outside of athletics that, or support group for mental health, and
Yeah.
definitely resources online to seek, support, because other people, experience the same thing as well. It's a common experience, and definitely, letting people know that you're not alone in it. Millions of people go through it, so definitely do not feel alone. But yeah, thank you so much for your story. Really, when I first saw the TikTok, it was not only very relatable, but definitely, but just definitely very meaningful, and just that I get where you're coming from.
Mhm.
So based off, your content, where can people find you?
Yeah. So, I mean, my TikTok right now is more so like I just post random stuff on it. I have definitely considered kind of opening up a platform more about that, and following my TikTok would be one way to find it. Also my Instagram at Emily Hauk. I think it's underscore. I'll send you the details on it, but I am very open about talking about this type of things. And like I said, I've had so many people just message me, DM me, and like I have about like 8 different girls that I've just been like keeping up with their sports season on, and they're just like talking to me about the stuff that they're going through. So like if anybody wants to talk to me about that stuff, I absolutely will respond. Like I love talking about it. I'm actually planning on starting a YouTube channel called What the Hell is Adulting? And it's not necessarily specifically mental health related, but I will be talking about a plethora of things within that topic. And don't know when I'm going to start that, but it will happen eventually. So
Cool. Awesome. Especially yeah, YouTube, definitely. I completely support that. And I will put all of her information in the description below. So definitely check that out and give her a follow. And once she opens that YouTube channel, subscribe, definitely.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily, for coming on and sharing your story. And pretty much, guys, that's all we have. So I will see you guys next time for episode 3. Take care.